Hello, dear friends at Cardiac Radio. Here we are at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with one more Immortal Messages. Immortal Messages is a beautiful program that talks about immortality, your immortality and mine. It's about messages that were received 66 years ago by Chico Xavier through his speaking mediumship in a mediumistic meeting. And those messages are immortalized. And they also boosting us the best for our own immortality. Those who discarnated came back to tell us advices, give advices. They were giving us warnings. They were teaching us the beauty of life. They were encouraging us to do the good. Each and every message has uplifting features, contents to delight our minds and hearts, calibrating us for immortality. Today we're going to study rescue work. It's this priest, CT. We don't know who he was. For obvious reasons, they kept him anonymous. But he was a former priest and then a bishop. He came to talk about his own experience in the afterlife, his rescue work. It's fascinating because you think, and people may think, when I discarnate, since I know about God and religiosity and I practice it and I help, that's it. No, it's about vibration. It's not about external deeds, how many things I've done. It's about our vibration, the quality of our emissions. Every year, you may, whatever you are in the United States, it's like that. You do emissions test. And you go there and they see if your car is polluting the planet or not. It's like emissions. We also have these measurements in the spiritual realm. Yes, the good spirits can measure whether or not we're being of help in our emissions or the opposite, no matter our labels in terms of religiosity. And this is what we're going to see today. It's a rescue work. You see how hard it is. It's not simple. Ready? Yes. Let us begin. His testimonial is unbelievable. He begins by saying, brothers and sisters, the experience of the elders is helpful to the young ones. Whoever has crossed the valley of death can help those still transiting the obscure rails of carnal existence. Therefore, gratitude compels me to bring you something from me. So he's going to talk about his rescue work. Thanks to the effort of the Spiritist group Mei, as a director of the group and her team, helped rescue this man who was a priest. And yet, he found himself in an unexpected condition. He says, when I first came in contact with you, I left defeated, not convinced. I thought you were magnetizers helping a sick, difficult patient. We now stop to evaluate what he says. This is Chico Xavier's group. High spirits, Mei, Emmanuel, Andrew Lewis. And yet, first contact, there's no imposition. They didn't impose themselves. They helped him, but he was like not convinced. And you think that just by talking to the spirits, they are gonna be convinced about what we say. We can barely convince ourselves sometimes, or even our loved ones at home. And you think we're gonna be able to convince the invisible minds just like that. It's humbling. I would say the lesson today is all about humility. It's all about humility. Humility from all angles of life. He continues. I had awakened from a horrible nightmare. I woke up and I identified myself. I recognized that I was a priest, resurfaced, but rebellious and unrepentant. Vainly, the spiritual benefactors extended their arms towards me. So you see, we're always being helped. And yet, what dictates whether or not we're going to be able to pick up on the help, it is our vibration. Our vibrations dictate it. In vain, comforting voices were heard. The ordinances and conventions of the earth lay petrified in my hard head. When incarnated, I made authority the expression of my strength. I used the mitre with the pride of the invigilant priest, who elevates himself in hierarchical functions for the purpose to dominate the thoughts of his brothers and sisters. Ouch, this is so hard, right? So hard. He thought he had authority at hand. He discarnated, didn't find he was in authority any longer. He says, as much as pity directed my captivating exhortations, I recalcitrated desperate. I did not suppose death was that phenomenon of revival. You see, we really keep on living. My impressions of the physical body were intact and my faculties intangible. In the first chapter of the Medium's book, Kardec asks, are there spirits? And he says, at the end of the chapter, he asks these questions. Aren't we going to keep on living? Aren't we going to keep on feeling? Aren't we going to keep on loving? Aren't we going to keep on thinking? We're just who we are. And that's beautiful. Can you imagine? You work hard to create certain things, abilities and virtues, and then you discarnate, it all disappears. No, just the material things stay, but everything else comes with us. Knowledge, experiences, feelings, thoughts. So it's worthwhile investing in healthy experiences and in healthy knowledge. I reclaimed my titles and I demanded my home. And of course, the good spirits did not stretch through useless conversation. They took my hands and they brought me to the door of my house. That was no longer my house. Certainly, my charitable conductors brought me to my unconscious. Afflicted, I shouted for my servants, yet my voice died without echo. The night had advanced, and then I started hearing the disrespectful roar of sarcastic voices in my ears saying, open the shed, open the door to the bishop. Assistance to the master of the house. Attend to the illustrious visitor. Place for his eminence. All this with irreverent laughter. In the book Nosso Lar, André Luiz talks about that experience of bullying voices. You think bullying happens here on earth only? It happens in the beyond. André Luiz was bullied too, like this spirit was being bullied. Sarcastically. Terrible, very cruel. But because his vibrations were low. He had benefactors, but he was not connecting with them. It's like a Wi-Fi. It's right here, but we can't connect. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, Camilo, the spirit author, through Yvonne Pereira, tells us about that experience in the Valley of Suicides. Voices of sarcasm, other spirits who are mentally ill, bullying the suicides. The very suicides bullying other suicides. Fearing the ridicule, I sought out the familiar church. Priest friends watched in prayer. So you see, throughout he's saying he's being watched, he's being cared for, but he needs to go through his own catharsis. In psychology, we talk about catharsis. I would say this experience of his rescue work is just like that. He's throwing up, he's bringing out, he's venting, he's experiencing everything. He needs to go through. The good spirits cannot say, no, don't feel it. Well, he's being protected, but he's allowed to go through his own experience. Okay? The good spirits are not going to refrain us from experiencing what we need. That's why it's important to do therapy while we are incarnated. But good therapy, with people who are responsible and caring. And you go there and you organize emotions, cleanse the heart so you can cross over, discarnate lighter. But you need to have courage. I would say, as a psychologist, if you don't have the courage to change, going to therapy is to no use. Because many people go to therapy with the purpose of having somebody soothe them, console them, and keep where they are. That's not good therapy. A good therapy is the one that is going to encourage us to take another step. But some people, they can't. Why? Because it's not convenient for them, for their ego. All right. He says, I thought I was the boss. I knelt before the images I worshipped, but never to that time had I so surely noticed the coldness of the idols that represented the sacred objects of my faith. I wanted to be felt. I wanted to be heard. I want to be touched. Then, as if a magnet provoked me, I stepped back in a hurry. In fast pace, I went down to the little dark room. I've been attracted to my own remains. There in the silent darkness lay the body that served me. The repulsive stench of the grave obliged me to retreat. But something constrained me to a compulsive approach. I touched the shabby robes. I felt that my soul was juxtaposed to the bare bones. I wanted to go back to the vertical position, but there were only worms, and more worms were the only flash of life there. Overpowered by terrible dread, I returned to the altar in my innermost prayers. Prayers that sprang from me, different from those I memorized to elude time. We have to stop before we read the last part of this message. He is sharing with us that sometimes we say prayers without feelings. In chapter 27 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, Allan Kardec explains to us that we need urgently to learn how to pray with our hearts. You can say the Lord's Prayer or the Ave Maria or St. Francis' prayer, however prayer you know, as long as you feel it. By saying it, no deal. By feeling it, great deal. It's more than words. It's about feeling. It's about vibration. When you contemplate nature, like you keep looking at the beauty of a tree. I have a tree right here by my window, and I contemplate the different shades of green in the leaves. When I see how they move with the breeze, how tall they've been, how resilient to time, giving shelter to birds, generations and generations of birds. I see a bird now. The squirrels that climb, shelter themselves there. I raise my thought to God. In deep admiration. I cannot make a tree. I can draw, not necessarily paint, but make. Only God. That's a prayer. And I see the branches of the tree moving as if they're saying hi to us. As if they're saying, you're right. We are godly made. God sent. And the tree's there. Fulfilling its mission. The intelligent principle connected to it is evolving. Sometimes I go there and I hug that tree. And I send my thoughts of gratitude for its protection, for its kindness, for the vitalization of our energy fields. That's a prayer. Because I know that God is sustaining that tree. Kardec says in the Spirit's book that by contemplating the creation of God, we not only grasp the proof of God's existence, but we connect consciously. This priest didn't do that. He believed in the external, the clothes. That's why we in Spiritist centers do not have these external garments. People would probably believe more if they saw us all dressed up in white. But it's not real. We're not different because of the color of the clothes, because of, it's nothing to do with the external, it's about the heart. It's about the inner. And our dear spirit here, the priest, is saying, when he realized what happened and saw his body, he prayed, you see, a shift. Prayers that sprang from me, different from those I had memorized to elude time. I looked for an old crucifix. There was the Lord's cross. It was not an idol. It was a symbol. It was alone, discouraged, and I prayed with compassion. I remembered the teachings of the Divine Master who collected the disoriented and sick souls to restore their encouragement. And a voice in the back of my head, whose inflection of energy and gentleness, kindness, I could not translate, exclaimed to my weary spirit. He shifted in one feeling, in one prayer. He was in the Wi-Fi of sorrow, desperation, and dread. By the moment he raised above it, like in one feeling, like, I want consolation, he connected with the Spirit Mei Mei, the director of the group who was taking care of it all, her team. And she spoke to him, and he was able to hear. You want to know what she said? It says, "Friend, your house on earth has closed with your eyes. Your ecclesiastical powers are now reduced to a handful of ashes. And of all the priestly activities that you have carried out, only remains the one of now, that of your own resurrected faith in the humility of the heart." Christ does not remain crucified on the altars of the stone, disputing the reverence of those who are supposed to honor his memory at the price of incense and gold. Jesus is outside, with the mothers who feel helpless, with the disciples who sustain in themselves hard struggles. The Lord walks along the old path that men follow for millennia, looking for those who yearn to gather fraternity and light, service and renewal. He approaches the faithful souls who share the time between the lesson that educates and the work that sanctifies. He seeks the children without a nest, sheltering them in the arms of those who remember the loving exhortation. He breathes in the factories where the sweat of the humble asks for help. Now in the tormented circles of the redemptive struggle, where hearts restored in the gospel try to build a new road for the future, Christ lives outside, comforting the slandering and wiping the tears of all those who feel themselves to die in the solitude of the vanquished. The Lord is still the celestial pilgrim of the world. On cold nights, Jesus is the clothing of those who have not received the grace of a home. By the stove without fire, he is the heat that generates the energies of those who have not been able to acquire a crust of bread. With the nurses in the hospitals, Jesus holds in his arms the sick in abandonment. Tireless friend of the blind and the lepers, the tired and the sad, Jesus instills them generously with the blessing of hope. The Master never wore the tunic of idleness that would place his heart in a dead shroud. Come on, let's go in search of the resurrected Lord. Let us seek the Christ beyond the cross by taking the cross that is our own in order to meet him in the great resurrection. I was afflicted, but returned to myself. I felt cold. Okay, before I finalize what he felt, these words by the illuminated mind of Mei Mei's team. She's saying that the solution for us is to find those who are sick, who are ill, who are in need, the poor, in so many ways. I remember one time talking to Mentor Joseph about many years ago, about how shocked I was about reading the story of a spiritist who was renowned and quitted his works in Spiritism. And I said, how come, Mentor Joseph? Can't believe it. And he said, yes, it is possible. When you start doing things as if you're doing for the world, putting on a CV, lines of external accomplishments, but forget the inner and forget the ones in need. You do it just to show. You may fall in the abyss of obsession. There is a message titled Jesus, Kardec, and us. At the end of this message, Emmanuel says that when we say, for any reason, that we can't do good works because we are sick, tired, too busy, it's when we are falling in the traps of obsession. And then I said, what is the secret? He said, if you, Vanessa, focus on helping those who are in need, you will never, ever fail. If you focus on seeking those who are sick, who are sorrowful, who are in need of a word, bread, clothes, shelter, loving embrace, kindness, you never fail. So I share this message with you because that's going to be the exercise we're going to do in the next 24 hours. In the next 24 hours, you and I are being asked to find one person who is in greater need than you, whether materially, emotionally, or spiritually. Find that person. It could be anybody. And then you will customize a loving offer to that person. It could be money, could be clothes, could be food, gift cards. It could be a phone call, a message, a text message, a video message, a letter. It doesn't matter what it is. A gift that you mail to them, since we are still practicing social distancing. Find that person and do something for that person. In that mode daily, we're going to be with Jesus because he is where suffering is found. You want to be with Jesus? He's not in a meeting where we talk about spirituality. He is where people are suffering. Of course, in that meeting, if people are really suffering, of course, his presence will be felt. But we're talking about things that are tangible to the heart. If we focus on the people who need the most, we'll never fail, no matter the struggles, because we're not doing these things for people to see. Like here at Kardec Radio, all programs at Kardec Radio with all the hosts, it's not done to show knowledge. It's not done to show anything. It's to share spiritual bread with everyone. Share joy, share encouragement, share the medication that is good for all of us. And that's why Kardec Radio is still here, because that's our focus. Our focus is not to make us pretty and look in the world and say what we're doing. It's not about us. It's about you. What you need. And when people send us emails saying, I need this, I need that. So then you go, we have 10,000 platforms that we have a team to help us feed daily, to make sure people are nourished. An app that people can listen to Kardec Radio 24/7. And all the other platforms. Besides Facebook, we have our YouTube channel. By the way, if you want to watch previous programs, go to our YouTube channel at Kardec Radio. We have all the playlists there, easily accessible, or to SoundCloud. By the way, we have new programs at SoundCloud, programs that are just audio. They are not video. And you can find their books recently, Recipes for Peace. They were recently uploaded. Spiritist Conduct, etc., etc. Okay? Let us search for the resurrected Lord. Let us seek the Christ beyond the cross in order to meet him in the great resurrection. This is life. How did the priest feel about it? He says, I was afflicted, but I returned to myself. I felt cold. My church was cold. But then with the warmth of the prayer, I implore to heaven the permission to be united to the restored gospel in the religion of humanitarian and social endeavor, with the temple guarding faith by foundation and charity as its ceiling. So faith is the temple and the ceiling is charity. We're protected through charity. And embracing with you the renewed path. Now he's talking to the Spiritist group. I now try to advance to the sublime future. That's it. That's all that we need. Renewal. Renewal in charity, in kindness. So we invite you to do this exercise with us in the next 24 hours. We're all going to seek one person who needs something that we can be of help. And you give to them without humiliating them, with love. And you are going to go after that suffering and dedicate yourself for one day to relieving the pain and the sorrow of that person. If you want to do more than one, that's fine. One, minimum. In that exercise, we're going to make this faith of ours tangible. Because this priest, he thought external deeds were the deal. He found out they were not. Let us then pray together and feel the beauty of life. Life is beautiful, and we praise God for its beauty. I'm going to play a music that shall be our background for the prayer. Let us raise our thoughts to Jesus. Dear Master Jesus, your invitation is so light and loving, so easy. You don't demand anything but goodwill. We thank you for teaching us today through this man who once had misconceptions like ours, and now, certainly, 66 years later, is renewed. In his renewed path, finding those who suffer, meeting with you daily, to relieve the pains and the sorrows of so many. We're living the times of the pandemic. So many problems. And yet, the solutions already in place. We pray that we see the solutions through the gratitude of our hearts. May we feel the love of your kind heart enveloping us in courage so we can be good instruments to God. Please bless our homes, and may we feel with you, through you, the vibrations of healing that are now enveloping the earth, renewing life, restoring its harmony in the hearts of everyone too. As we change our vibrations, elevating them with you, we hope to keep up with this inspiration and be of greater help. May the suffering ones in the hospitals, in the streets, displaced by natural disasters. V. Rescued by two realms. Please count on us. And thank you for your merciful presence. Feeling your protection, we kindly ask you for the permission to conclude these moments of prayer, and so be it. It feels good, and it's certainly good. In this rescue work of this priest, we learn immortal lessons. And we are invited to give of ourselves, give of our time, of our energy, of our joy, of our encouragement, wherever we are. We wish you lots of blessings, and we hope to be back here at Kardec Radio with more immortal messages that are always nourishing our souls. Thank you, friends. Until tomorrow, God willing.